Hi, welcome to Dave's Corner of the World. Have a great day. Hey, I'm going to talk about RV test equipment when you go to an RV park, whether you're using 30 amp or 50 amp. Always check your power coming in to the pedestal before you plug in your rig. Like I say, whether it be a 30 amp circuit or a 50 amp circuit. If the pedestal is not wired properly, now 99.999% of the time they are, but once in a while, a pedestal could have a ground wire burned out of it and the RV park not know about it. So always check with your test equipment. Now what this is, very simply, this little guy, you can buy that at Walmart. I know you can. Anywhere that sells RV equipment, you can buy that. That's just a 30 amp on this side, just a normal 30 amp RV plug to a 20 amp regular household plug. That's all this is. It's just an adapter to go from 30 amp to 20 amp. This little guy, you can get them at Walmart, you might be able to get them at Walmart, I'm not sure. So you get them at Home Depot, Lowe's, anywhere like that. And what this does, it tells you can plug it into a circuit and see if it's wired correctly. If it's wired correctly, you plug it into a live circuit. These two amber lamps up here will shine. If one of them doesn't, well, whatever, it'll tell you what's wrong with it here. Just match up, and so most of the time the little amber lights will be lit anytime you have it plugged into a hot plug, whether it be this type or inside your house, inside your motorhome, inside of anything, just a 20 amp circuit. So you plug this in, turn the breaker on, make sure those two amber lights are lit. If they are not, you go directly to the manager and say, we have a little problem here with the electrical. That brings me to something else. Before we even plug in, make sure the breaker, whether it be a 30 amp or a 50 amp, make sure those breakers are turned off. Plug in your test equipment, check them, turn them off again. Take your test equipment out, put in your RV plug, whether it be 30 or 50, and turn the breaker back on. Why? What difference could that possibly make? I'm sure somewhere in your lifetime you've gone and unplugged an electric heater, unplugged something that had power going through it, and as soon as you unplug it, you see a little spark. Bink! Just a little bitty tiny spark. Well, with each of those little sparks, it gets rougher. These connections in here have an arc, and they get rougher and rougher, and then they get more and more resistance in there. Resistance is not a friend of electricity. The more resistance, the more heat. The more heat, the more resistance. And sooner or later, the inside of our RV receptacle is going to burn up, or the legs on your plug is going to burn up. If you see they get burned just a little, take a emery cloth, sandpaper, whatever you can to keep them smooth. And if they get too bad, if you just get, pitted to where it's visibly pitted and nasty looking, just go to Home Depot or whatever you need to do and get a new plug. You can get a new plug. This is a 50 amp plug, but you can get a new 30 amp or 50 amp plug at Home Depot. Just cut it off and rewire it. Make sure you wire it back properly. Okay, anyway, these two guys there's nothing to them. You just buy them each piece. I think this is about $7 and this is probably about the same. I don't know. Anyway, very, 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 very cheap insurance. If something is wired wrong at the pedestal, or if the ground neutral is open at the pedestal, it's a possibility that you could have some major problems with the computer inside your RV rig. These computers inside your RV rig are very, very sensitive. They are very good, but if something isn't right, well, you just don't want to take that chance. Okay, 30 amp is very simple. 50 amp is a little bit different. I built this one with 50 amp. Of course, it's not just 50 amps. You have, this is neutral, this is ground, this is L1, and this is L2. Now, if you don't know what that means, just take it from me that between this leg and this leg, you got 120 volts, 50 amps. From this leg to neutral, you've got 120 volts, 50 amps. Now, wait a minute. 50 amps from here to here and 50 amps from here to here. That means you got 100 amps going into your 50 amp rig. Yes, you do. 30 amps total, 100 amps total. Okay? Think about that for a while. This is wired up. It's not exactly the same configuration, but it's wired up identical as your range in your house, or your electric range in your house, or your dryer. They call it a 50 amp, but actually it's 100 amp. Okay. I bought this plug at Home Depot. I bought this wire. I bought everything here at Home Depot. I bought the box. I bought the 20 amp receptacle inside of it. And it works just exactly the same way as this does. Plug it in. Trip the 50 amp breaker, and if all four of these amber lights come on, good to go. If something is not right, if those amber lights are not lit up, you disconnect the 50 amp, you turn the 50 amp breaker off, pull this out, go to the RV manager, person in the office, and say, hey, look, I just checked your 50 amp circuit at site number whatever, and this is what I found. Do we have an electrician to come and help me out? Because I don't want to plug my rig in until I'm satisfied that it's okay. And RV parks want to know if there's a problem with their electricity. They don't want to hurt your rig. I worked for this RV park here for a little over 5 years, and I want to know up front if there's anything wrong. I will fix it. I'm the maintenance guy here. I will fix it without hesitation. I just need to know there's something wrong. I'm going along thinking everything is fine. If you can show me something's wrong, then we'll take a look at it immediately. Anyway, make sure your disconnect is turned off on the 50 amp circuit. Plug this in, flip the 50 amp breaker, check, and make sure all four amber lights are running. If they are, turn the 50 amp breaker back off, pull this out, put in your 50 amp to your rig, flip the 50 amp circuit breaker, you're good to go. This is a little bit different. I think this is super, super, super important. But I'll put up a diagram of how this is wired up. You could, for ease of wiring it, you could put in 2 plugs. I put in one here. We could put in 2 plugs just as easy. Anyway, I'll show how that's wired up. If you would like to have one of these 50 amp circuit testers for your RV, but aren't sure how to make one, I can make one for you. I can't stress enough how important it is when you go somewhere, check your power, turn off the 50 or 30 amp plug or the breaker before you put your RV power in. Whether it be 30 or 50, make sure it's turned off, plug it in, turn on that circuit breaker.